Our goal today is to just allow, one of the things that we saw in our membership survey was that the members want to hear from the board and know the board. And we thought this would be a great way to have kind of just an informational session for the membership to see who's on the board and kind of what makes up the board and what the board does, so that hopefully we will see a number of people who decide to put their names in the running for board positions when those nominations open next month. Before we get into individual questions and introductions, maybe Moshe, just want to give you a chance to say hello and any words you want to say.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, Nick, and I guess anyone else who may be listening later after this is recorded. So firstly, I want to thank everyone for coordinating this today. And I really want to thank Dan. I believe this was his brainchild at one of our meetings when we were talking about the next stage, so to speak, of next group of people running for the board of directors. And there was some feedback from our survey, as Dan mentioned, about getting to know the board. So we thought Dan thought this was a great idea, and we all agreed with him to host a session like this for people to meet the members of the board and get a sense of who everybody is and what we do on the board. What's the commitment? What's involved? What do I gain from it? Do I want to do this? Is this something that will benefit me in my career? I was asked to just talk a little bit about the structure of the board and how things work. So the positions on the board are firstly what is called member at large, which is the general members of the board of directors. And a member at large has a 2-year term, and people can run for additional terms, but each term is 2 years. In addition to members at large, there is also an executive board. The executive board consists of, actually, I'm sorry, before executive board, let me talk about 2 other things. We also have a resident member of the board, who is Irini, who I saw earlier. Where's Irini? There she is in the upper right-hand corner on my screen. I'm not sure where she is for you. Irini is our resident member. And we also have a coordinator member, who is Jennifer Cassidy, who in my screen is over to the left over there. This year, we added an additional member at large with a specific focus, and that was a member at large with a focus on DEI efforts to make sure that as a board, we're always cognizant of our DEI priorities and responsibilities in every decision that we make, in every project that we launch, etc. The executive board consists of the actual officers of the organization, and executive board members are people who have been members at large and have now run for positions on the executive board. And there are 4 positions on the executive board, which are secretary treasurer, president-elect, president, and then immediate past president. So a member at large position is a commitment of 2 years at a time, whereas the executive board is a commitment for 4 years in those 4 positions. The secretary treasurer is right now Bo Burns, who in my screen is right under me. And that position is responsible for reviewing our financial statements, looking at our financial position, seeing how we're doing in terms of finances for the organization. That's the treasurer part. And the secretary part is about reviewing the minutes for meetings and procedures and things that we do to make sure that everything is recorded properly. And then from secretary treasurer, the next step is president-elect. President-elect obviously is the person who's about to become the president, and then president and immediate past president is the person the year before. So there's always that kind of institutional memory and transition as we transition positions. Each of the positions in the executive board is a 1-year position. So secretary treasurer for 1 year, president-elect 1 year, president 1 year, and then immediate past president for 1 year. In terms of time and responsibilities, the board meets together once a month, and that's a 2-hour meeting. In addition, we also meet, that's virtual. In addition, we also meet in person at some of the major conferences. So we always meet in person at Court AA, and then typically at one of the other major emergency medicine meetings, whether it's ACEP or SAEM, depending on when in the year things fall out. We also have one additional in-person meeting in between that, which is our strategic planning meeting. That's also done in person once a year, and that's a 2-day meeting. The executive board, in addition to the general board meetings, the executive board also meets once a month. That's a 1-hour meeting, and that's usually scheduled in between the board meetings. So for example, if there's a board meeting the 2nd week of the month, we may have our executive board meeting the 4th week of the month or something like that, just to make sure that it's spaced out in between. There are certainly things that come up along the way and issues that we need to deal with, and we have a communications tool that we use for that to try to get some of those things done. I think in general, people feel like being on the board is very rewarding. I think we feel like we have an opportunity to really give back to the organization and help kind of move emergency medicine forward. Certainly, we all work hard, but I think we get to have a good time while we're doing that, as you heard in the introductions to this meeting before. I think in general, we're a fun group to be around. I hope we all believe that. And we enjoy spending time together while we're working hard and trying to promote the mission of emergency medicine education. So I hope that gives you a general sense of what's going on. I know Dan has a lot more planned for you this afternoon, so I will turn it back over to him.
Great, thank you, Moshe. And Mike, since you're the only other non-Cord person on the call, maybe we could just have you introduce yourself. We have Nick from Vanderbilt, who's one of their APDs, who's another person, but we'd love for you to say hello, and then we'll get started with some board introductions. Yeah, you.
Got it. It's a common name. I'm used to not being the only Mike in the room. So I'm Mike Kimney. I'm the PD at Loma Linda. I don't know, just curious to hear what y'all have to say.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
And then I just want to, before we get into going kind of round robin with the board, just want to acknowledge and welcome Marianne Howie, who's here with me, as she's the co-coordinator of Cord Connects with me and a former board member. So definitely has the experience. And then for those that haven't seen the names behind a lot of the email, or seen the faces behind a lot of the emails, our Cord staff is here. So Annie K. Irby, our executive director, as well as Megan, Kelly, and the other Megan, or sorry, not the Megan, April, and Kelly, who are the Cord staff members who are really the worker bees behind everything we get done. And really, we could never, ever survive without all of them. So we're really grateful for all of their support. So we're just going to kind of go around board member by board member to give you a sense of kind of who we are and what we do. And so we'll start. I'm just going to go kind of in the order that I'm here. And I'm just going to ask each board member to tell you who they are, where they're from, maybe what made you join the board, and kind of your favorite project or something unique that you've done as a member of the board that maybe is not so obvious from the position just title that you have. And so Diane, you're the lucky one because you're first on my screen. So we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Diane Rimple. I'm from the University of New Mexico, and I was having a side chat with Nicholas about all of the New Mexicans at Vanderbilt. So I'm the vice chair of education, and I ran for the board the first time right after I finished my very long stint as program director. I felt like I didn't have any extra time to do anything as a program director, but I have always loved Cord and really felt like this was my community and wanted to give back and help with the direction that we're going as a specialty in medical education and the wellness of program directors, which I felt was lacking in my own life in that capacity. I have been helping develop a regular slate of regional meetings, regional Cord meetings, to bring medical education and professional development to academic programs in a more local way to help networking and that sort of thing. And we've had 2 so far, and I'm hoping to make this a regular thing, and we can even have more than 1 regional meeting a year. But at this point, we're just doing 1 a year, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that we've made that work, and it was a high priority item for the board, and it's happening. I'm the liaison for the medical student group ASCM and the county programs community of practice. I'm an active participant in the remediation group, and I'm part of the medical education fellowship community of practice because I also am the fellowship director for MedEd fellowship. Sorry, that was long.
No, that was awesome. And I think, so you'll probably hear that everybody kind of has all the functions within the context of being on the board, but most of us also have some other responsibility as a liaison to one or more of either the task forces or the communities of practice or other things, and kind of projects that come up along the way. So you'll probably hear some of those things mentioned as well. So not only is it's an opportunity to sort of be together as the board of directors, but also to have a lot of interaction with sort of key sort of leadership throughout the organization, and have some face time with different committees as well. All right, next on my screen is Jason.
All right, this will be a lot shorter than Diane's because I'm new to the board. I'm one of the new members at large, and I guess I'll just talk a little bit about why I am on the board more than anything. So AA has kind of been the Academic Assembly has been part of my lifeblood for CORD for the last 6-ish years, 8 years. I don't even know anymore, but I've been was a track chair for a couple of years, then chair for a series of 3 years. And now, as Dan mentioned, I'm the board liaison to the Academic Assembly. And so that's, I think, the biggest thrust of what I want to do with CORD, and that's make our Academic Assembly the best it can be. Oddly enough, that said, I haven't been there in person in 3 years for various reasons. So I'm looking forward to getting back to a live Academic Assembly this year. And I think, as I look at the edutainment that's going on out there, one of my goals is to help our Academic Assembly be a better and better product that can both educate and entertain our audience. Other interests I have are the workforce issues. So I serve in that capacity as a rep with SAEM, and then I think training competency is another area of focus for our specialty these days, and that's something else that I have a big interest in making sure we're graduating competent residents with appropriate training when they go out into the world. And I got to be the ACEP rep for the ACEP Council for the CORD board this year, which was interesting. I'm not a political guy really, so seeing ACEP grind sausage was a little interesting. So that's my story. Oh, I guess I didn't mention where I'm from. I'm the PD at WashU in St. Louis.
And hands down has the best decorated office, and I don't know exactly what's going on back there, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a test for the ADHD. I just watch the eyes go back and forth.
All right.
This is all the shit my wife won't let me have at home. That's really what it is.
Okay, Jessica Smith.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jessica Smith. I am a former program director at Brown and current designated institutional official, DIO, at Brown. So I'm in Providence, Rhode Island. And obviously there's lots of reasons why we all love CORD and why we joined it. For me, it was when I was kind of junior in my APD role, and I was like, oh my God, this seems so cool. These are all my people. And then I saw a lot of the leaders. I was like, oh my God, I want to learn how to be a leader. How do I ever be one of those people? I'll never be cool enough or smart enough or good enough. So over time, I kind of did a lot of stuff with CORD. I would say one of the most intimidating things is like the vote, the ballot, and you like have all of those imposter syndrome things happen in your head. I've run for the board. I've lost for the board. I've run for the board. I've gotten on the board. I've had interim time where I wasn't on the board. And through all of that, nobody ever remembers who's on the ballot. So I would also encourage folks who are interested, like, don't be afraid, because even if you lose one year, you're not really a loser. You just have another opportunity to like apply again the next year. And then one day you might be president-elect like I'm going to be. So anything's possible. And I think that was one of the things that I was grateful to learn about, is that unlike, what I think a lot of people think of, like, oh, it's like the board, like they're these scary people and they're this secret clique. I didn't really know anyone. I just knew that I loved CORD and I wanted to give back. And then all of the people on the board became my friends and colleagues. So I think that's one of the other great things about having like a community within a community, because you meet people that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily bumped into. Because who do I know from Oklahoma? Nobody. But now I'm on the board with Bo and I'm like, hey, Bo, what's up? You're my pal, which is great. And Moshe's president, I hopefully have been helpful to him, but like now he's a guy who I always like, oh my God, Moshe Weisberg, he's like so great. I'll never like be as good as him. And now he's like so emotionally in tune to me. He'll be like, Jessica, you seem like you're upset. I'm like, oh, you know me so well. And I think that's a great thing that I get out of the board as well, is just all of the relationships.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that I secretly have done or do is I write the poems that come with the PD gifts. And I am also the secret grammar police for a lot of our statements and forward-facing resources because I'm crazy about grammar. So I make sure that all those periods and commas are in the right place. And things that go on the website or bomb packs and stuff like that that come out of committees.
And I will tell you, don't you dare stand up in front of ASAP Council and not announce yourself and who you represent, because she will tear you apart.
You have to do it right at ASAP Council. That's true. There's a protocol. You got to follow the rules. One of the things that I think is important is to make things easy for people. And I like to be the reality checker on the CORD board. Like, people do all these things. And I was like, so at the end of the day, that sounds crazy or that sounds good. So I'm very good at kind of the bottom line stuff. And I'm gonna leave it at that because it's already 12:21.
Jessica, you are hilarious. Thank you.
That was amazing. Sorry, Irini, you have to follow that.
I was gonna say I can't top that, but I'm Irini. I'm one of the third-year residents at Vanderbilt. So Nick and I go way back. But so one of the main reasons why I wanted to join last year was I was really interested in medical education, and I couldn't think of a better organization of leaders to learn from. And my experience has been nothing than wonderful mentorship and great experiences in learning more about medical education and furthering EM education. So it's been such an awesome privilege to be part of this group as a resident. I would say one of the other main things I do outside of the board is help out with AROS. It's the All EM residency organization group, where basically with like EMRA, RAMS, and a bunch of other organizations, we come together every couple of months during conferences and we talk about what we can do together to further EM. So last meeting, for example, we were talking about what we can do with the whole workforce and decrease the number of applications, how we can work together to mitigate that. So it's been such an awesome experience. And then beyond this year, I have the opportunity to also apply to help out with the residency track for academic assembly. So definitely you can grow even within CORD even after this year. So.
Amazing. And for any residents who do tune in to watch, definitely encourage you to reach out to Irini. She's been amazing on the board. And it's really, really helpful for us to have that resident voice in the conversation and to really kind of share the insight and sort of the lived experience of current trainees. And so an awesome opportunity for those that are looking for kind of national leadership positions and opportunities to work with all of us. And we are so lucky to have Irini. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cassidy. I am the coordinator at UCLA, and I enjoy teaching. So I'm very much a, leader in that sense and enjoy always being a student. And so in 2020, I presented at CORD for the first time, which kind of intrigued my interest in getting involved in so yeah, last year I was the vice chair. This year I'm the chair of eMARC and help lead all of our coordinators. And I really enjoyed troubleshooting and providing the best, quickest way to get to the end result. And so being a part of leading all of our coordinators and helping them through, the crazy different seasons has been really fun. And being a part of this has been really insightful. And yeah, it's just been a wonderful opportunity for myself, and I can't wait to do more stuff with CORD since this is kind of my last 6 months. But yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity, and I encourage other coordinators to get involved in many ways. And I think one of the things I've been doing this year has we have a leadership team within coordinators that we meet monthly, and then also just reviving our committees because of 2020 and 2021, it's kind of dissolved. And so that's kind of my baby of reviving that and getting everyone involved because we have some great humans that are leading or co-leading with our, educational teams. So.
Amazing. Jennifer has changed the board, I would say. She's been really instrumental in getting coordinators and front and center, and really think rallying the group together in a national organization. I think really helping people to feel represented. And certainly, I think similar to the resident role for those of us that are PDs, making sure that we have that lens of the coordinator is really critically important to our success and the things that we roll out or implement. And sometimes we need to hear, hey, you realize what that's going to do to all the coordinators if we have an idea. So another really great opportunity for people to get involved. All right, Cynthia.
We're trying to anticipate where your board squares are lined up. So I'm Cynthia. This year I am new to the board. I was initially selected as somebody who put their name in the hat for the DEI newly created position on the board. I would hope that they chose me because I've been involved with CORD for about the last 12 to 13 years. I was in the APT practice community as well as remediation and the wellness aspect. I've been really excited this year to try to look and see what are the things that are forward facing in terms of DEI, and really looked at the opportunities where CORD has been found lacking, and trying to make sure that where our hearts, minds, goals, and policies align with what is easily found on our websites as our goals, and found inside our policies. And so not only doing that part with CORD, but also like Irini, who is working with all resident group. I work with it all DEI group from all places, ACEP, AAEM, ACEOP, all of the different organizations have a DEI person or committee, and being able to share our goals. What is our lane in terms of resident and trainee direction? Comes back a lot. It's a kind of a big responsibility because CORD really stands for a lot. And so I've had a horrific time finding out what we don't look like on the outside and trying to fix that, while really having a pretty strong voice on the inside of that, which is great. I come from sides. I am on the program committee for SAEM, for NMA, for ACEP, as well as for CORD prior to this. And so I look at a lot of programs and academic assemblies and try to look and see where does some flavor need to be infused? Are we looking at the right things and the right titles? And so to bring that experience into the CORD board has been awesome. I've had great friends on the board beforehand, and I've found many more since joining. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I would encourage you, if you're thinking about it, throw your name out there and just get to know these wonderful people that I work with. Thanks.
Thank you. Bo, wake up.
Hello, everyone. I'm awake. My name is Bo Burns. I'm the chair at University of Oklahoma. I'm in my 4th year on the board and am currently the secretary treasurer. The stock market, the disclaimer is the stock market is no reflection of my ability as secretary treasurer. So I'm just going to throw that out there. One of the things that I'm kind of proud of or hope to bring to the board is the voice and the perspective of kind of maybe the smaller community programs, which is kind of what we are. And, one of the things I think we try to do is to look at things, examine things through a really wide lens, thinking about medical education as a whole. So my hope is to kind of represent those smaller programs and the little people, so to speak. And also one of the things that I've been very fortunate to do, been able to participate in, is a lot of the resident activities. In particular, I've been the AMRA board liaison for the 4 years that I've been on the board, and my hope and my plan is to stay in that role as long as I'm on the board, because I just feel so strongly about the pipeline that we have behind us, and ensuring that close communication and working relationship with the resident groups. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Laura.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm currently sitting on the floor outside our faculty retreat, so I'm going to need to deck out in just a couple of minutes to go present there as well. But I'm Laura Hobson. I'm from the University of Michigan. I was the program director there when I decided to run for the CORD board, and I've subsequently transitioned to the associate chair there. I think from a personal perspective, CORD has been such a wonderful community for me to learn and develop in. From everyone that I really wanted to try to give something back to the organization that was so essential for my own growth was really my motivation for running for the board. Emergency medicine has always been at the forefront of medical education, and really making sure that we continue that we continue to ask the hard questions, that we continue to engage and not necessarily be afraid of failing. We're going to have stumbles, but to ask the question is sometimes the most important thing. I think in terms of my roles, I've been very involved in sort of the application process initiatives that CORD has engaged with over the years, both initially as a committee member and then a leader of the task force, and then as the board liaison to the APIC committee, and had the opportunity there to work with and learn from a number of amazing people, and to continue to be involved even as we transition sort of our problems from too many to where the heck are they. So it's a fabulous group. They're wonderful opportunities. They're wonderful opportunities to leave your stamp on emergency medicine and to really contribute to an outstanding field and community.
Thanks, Laura. Arlene.
Hi, everyone. So nice to, I guess, meet some new faces here. And then for those of you who are tuning in later, I hope you find this super informative. I am one of the new board members. I just started my term this year. And one of the reasons I was really motivated to run was that I remember coming to CORD, my first academic assembly as a medical education fellow, and just feeling like these were my people. I met a bunch of people that shared the same interests, the same passions, and really the same desire to shape the specialty through the trainees and through the education that we deliver. I came to CORD through the pathway of wellness and well-being, and that's been the majority of my work with the organization, even prior to joining the board. I was part of the founding of the former Resilience Committee, now Well-Being Committee, and also helped to spearhead the mini wellness fellowship that they have going now. And I think it's really reflective of something that I think is critically important to so many of our members, how to deliver the education that we need to our trainees while also, sort of being compassionate to ourselves and ensuring that we are adequately prepared to do our jobs. I feel like through the board and being able to represent the, the voices of the people who got us here, we're able to shape some of that and to really support the PDs and the other folks in the residency leadership team. I'm also, a member of the Academy for Scholarship, and I've been involved with, various other CORD programming over the years. And I really just think it's a fantastic organization. For those of you who are, again, maybe considering running, I will also tell you, this is, I ran and I did not get it the first time. And at the encouragement of some mentors, a couple of years later, I decided to take another shot at it. And so, again, it's a wonderful way to give back and to provide service to your community and to get to know like another fabulous group of people.
Great, thank you, Arlene. And Tiffany.
I'm like, as much as I prepare, I'm like never really prepared to get called on, right? So I'm Tiffany Morano. I'm the immediate past president. I am currently the vice chair of education at Columbia University, and I also hold an associate DIO role with New York Presbyterian Hospital, overseeing the training programs on the Columbia and the Cornell campuses. I first joined CORD, and I was just updating my CV. So I first joined CORD in 2007, and I've spent the past 7 years on the board. And I have to say, I feel really fortunate. I attribute my career accomplishments and success to the opportunities that I've been able to get through my connections with CORD. And I ran for the board really to have the opportunity to pay it forward and to give back to the organization that I feel has done so much for me. you know, I feel like, yeah, so I'm immediate past president now. I feel like I'll be forever Dom, the virtual president. I unfortunately was not as forward facing with our members as I had hoped to be during my presidency, but I hope that our membership feels that I helped to, you know, shepherd our program leaders through the difficult times that we faced during COVID and the immediate times after. I'll say that my time with CORD has been really incredible, and I'm fortunate to be able to have worked with the most amazing human beings who I have ever met. And I consider everyone on the board my friends, and they've really been amazing. I'll say, I want to give everyone an opportunity to speak, but my advice is don't be afraid to take a step outside your comfort zone and get involved, make connections, and run for the board. I'll put my cell in the chat for those of you who, you know, want it, don't have it, and, you know, don't be afraid to contact me if you have any questions regarding CORD or getting involved, or if you need, you know, advice or help with anything. You know, we're all here for you. I'm here for you. That's it.
Thank you. Awesome. And then, so just briefly, I am one of the members at large. I'm currently the program director at Mass General and Brigham. And I kind of like Jason, was involved in the academic assembly for years. And in that role, you have a lot of interaction with the board. And it was this kind of mysterious group of people to me who met and made all these decisions and sent out announcements. And I didn't really know what happened. And so I decided to chat with a couple of people and then put my name in the running. And I'm really excited that I did. Having conversations monthly with people that are all passionate about the same thing that you are is really fulfilling and brings a lot of joy to a job that other times can be really stressful and sometimes, you know, not as joyful. And so it's just great to have that shared experience and that bond, and to be around people who kind of share similar interests and want to drive our specialty forward. And it's been amazing. I've been the liaison to the CPC committee, and then I took part in Equity Matters through the ACGME on behalf of CORD for the last 18 months, which has been a really exciting program, kind of looking at our kind of many of the things that Cynthia talked about, but specifically thinking about what our agenda is and what our plan will be as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So with that, certainly want to give our attendees some chances to ask any questions if you have any. And so I don't want to have too much awkward silence if you don't, but certainly want to give you a chance to come off mute and fire some questions at us if you'd like. And certainly, I'm sure Marianne also could easily share some things and have some questions as well. She's always good for good questions on our CORD Connects. But Nick and Mike, if you have anything, for sure.
I'm happy to kind of jump in. First off, thank you all so much. That was incredible. I think that was a big thing I was looking for when I joined here today, was just to hear what everyone's thoughts are, what everyone's passions are. It's so nice to see that there's a big group of leaders within our field who are looking out for what it seems like all of our interests are at this point, which is kind of keeping education within EM what it's always been and just trying to continue to improve. One of the big things you all kind of touched on was kind of the workforce report that had come out and how applicants seem to be down this year. I think we're all kind of experiencing that on kind of the residency director side of things and just how we're going to navigate that moving forward. I guess I was just curious if like what kind of initiatives are, you know, taking place, or what are some of the thoughts surrounding that and how we can try to turn this around kind of moving forward as a field. I know we're all kind of at an institutional level thinking about those things and how this can impact our field. I was just wondering what kind of some of y'all's thoughts were about that, just as a kind of opener.
Did something happen with the workforce?
Nothing too major, I don't think. Just a little thing, I think, here or there came out.
Way to ask a softball question to the board, Nick.
I was just curious. Just curious.
Bo's unaware because he's too busy crying about the money losses in the market.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, perhaps I can feel that question. You know, it's certainly on our minds, and we have reached out to our sister organizations to join forces to see what we can do to reinvigorate, I will say, our students into applying for emergency medicine. I think we all know that some of the more recent literature has shown that perhaps the projections were not as ominous as initially thought. And I think in time, my personal belief, speaking on behalf of myself, is that things will, the ship will right itself. But in the meantime, I think that we have to work on messaging our students, and while at the same time, I think part of what we need to do is address the wellness issues surrounding our specialty at this time. I think we're all seeing a lot of burnout and stress and a lot of boarding in the ED. So I think that the workforce probably isn't the only factor that plays into this, but that's why I think we all need to work together, all organizations, to really create a unified approach to how we are going to look at applicants and the match process moving forward.
So Nick, to kind of answer your question too, one of the things that we kind of considered was how's the best way to have a layered messaging, like Tiffany was saying, of this. And so yes, we want to support our programs now and want to pivot and help them get ready for, what does this next wave look like? But we also took kind of a proactive role of messaging the resident organizations too. We did an EMRA hangout on kind of the future of EM and presented some, census data and looking forward. And you all have heard me say this before, there's only been one article in the history of Journal Club that wasn't diced to pieces, and it was the workforce study. Man, we just took that thing and ran with it 100%. And it turns out maybe the attrition rate was a lot higher during the study period, and it turns out it's been higher since. And so I think we would all, you've seen this, you've observed this, the healthcare crisis is the absent worker, right, on the nursing side. And so we're trying our best to not do what emergency medicines do really well, which is fix things, and try not to overfix this into a place of where the anesthesia was in the 90s.
Yeah, I think as you can see, this has been a big part of what we've been working on over the last few months. And I frankly expect I was going to continue into the near future. What happened this last year and this year in the match, well, last year's match, this year's application season, and what's probably going to happen in the match is going to be very much on the CORD board agenda going forward. And I expect that to dominate a lot of our activities.
I think the other thing that's interesting and probably not obvious to folks, but something that we spend a lot of time on as a board, is talking about things like this that are affecting not just medical education, but our specialty, and kind of where are the lines of our organization? How much are we going to be an influencer, and how much are we going to be a reactor, and where we fit? And I think one of the things that we try and do is take a little bit of a measured approach. We don't like to react right at the beginning because we don't want to overcall things, but that's definitely something that happens in the background, not only with the workforce study, but also things like, virtual interview season, because we don't want to micromanage every program, but we realize programs want some direction. And some are like, just tell us what to do. Some are like, don't tell us what to do. So we spend a lot of time kind of weighing those pros and cons about how much we want to decide for our constituency and what exactly is our constituency. So that's part of the other thing that goes on at the board level.
I mean, those are incredible answers. I think that's very reassuring to me to know that at least like if these things are being thought about by people who are as high up in our field as you all are. And I couldn't have asked for better answers than those. So thank you all, obviously, first off for that. I very much agree. I think the initial data seemed like it was very much maybe a little bit overhyped, and we're kind of feeling a little bit of that on the back end. But at the same time, just to know that these are conversations that are being had amongst you all, and knowing that you all are doing all these initiatives to kind of help our field forward makes me feel much better. And I know as a field, I think we're going to be just fine. Every field kind of does this forever, and we've seen it in other specialties before. And I think we're all going to continue to feel that, but I appreciate that honesty all a lot. And it means a lot to know that you all are looking and thinking about these things. So thank you for that.
Yeah, the other thing I'll just say is that I think just to sort of piggyback on what Jessica said was we often do sort of do a little bit of the wait and see approach. But we anticipated this happening and we actually had conversations beforehand. And so as soon as the data came out about the drop of applicants, we had something ready to go and we've created a task force and stuff. So I think they're obviously part of what you have to do when you're on the board is decide what are our sort of emergent, like our own internal triage system. What are the emergent issues? This was considered emergent to have some sort of statement and response and action plan versus what are the things that are a little, ESI 4 that can wait a little bit before we actually do something more significant.
And the only other thing I'll add, so we don't beat the horse that's already dead, but it's very interesting for us. I'm the serious one on the board completely. It's always very much for us, not only do we all have some culpability in our programs and as CORD, as looking at that study before it went out, but also as it comes in, this is what is happening in our homes, right? This is our paycheck. This is how we'll be judged at the end when it comes to retirement. What do we do with our programs? What do we do with our specialty? And so to know that it not only the business for us, but this is our heart and soul and livelihood, you should know is where we all are coming from. Not that's happening to them, but it's happening to all of us. I liken it to the, don't worry about the turbulence on the plane because the pilot wants to go home to their spouse and kids also, right? So we're all just trying to land this, but you should know that very much this is, it sounded like we want to wrap it up and put it in a bow. We don't. This is what we eat, breathe, and think about every day is recovery and longevity and strength and force in our specialty.
I feel better now.
I like that metaphor.
I know, me too. The turbulence on the plane. I love that.
So I work with an EM coach as well, and he loves a metaphor. So I wrote that down, Cynthia, because I'm like, the next time he's like, can you give me a metaphor for that? I'm gonna be like, I got a great one.
This girl.
I can certainly plant a question. Just want to make sure I don't step on any toes.
Mike, were you leaning towards your unmute button?
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, sure. You can push me onto my unmute button. That's cool. I think it'd be useful to know, kind of, as for folks that may be considering getting involved in a run for the board, what kind of stuff can the board actually do? I know we're talking about workforce, and I'm not necessarily asking what specifically is the board going to do about the workforce, but I think a lot of people look at CORD and say, well, they can fix it all, but they're just not, or they haven't yet, or they're not doing it the way that I think it should be done. And my guess is that the CORD board doesn't have unilateral power to fix a workforce issue or something like that, or a mismatch between the number of programs and the number of applicants. Similarly, there's a lot of talk about the future of emergency medicine and is it going to be telehealth and paramedicine and adding all that into residency education. So I think it'd be useful to hear, what's CORD's role in those types of discussions and what actually is the board able to do?
Mike, it's such a great question because this comes up all the time. I think the primary role of CORD, at least the way I see it, is to support educational programs, to support residencies, medical student education, fellowship education, any kind of education in emergency medicine, to be that support system in terms of providing resources, in terms of providing guidance, in terms of networking, in terms of helping with problems. But at the end of the day, we're not a regulatory agency. And we often get this feedback of, don't you see there's too many jobs in emergency medicine? Can't you just stop the number of residencies that are starting? And we just don't have that power. CORD does not control how many residencies get started and how many residencies expand their complement and how many spots we have. We don't have that authority. And, we're sometimes given similar kind of things about, can't you just fix the problem about protected time for EM faculty? And we would love to, and we advocate for it, and we fight for it. but ultimately we don't have the final authority on that. So you're right, there are definitely scenarios and circumstances where our membership has certain ideas and certain things that are really important and want us to do something about it. And ultimately, there's always something we can do, whether it's write a letter to the ACGME or advocate for our specialty or reach out to legislators. There's always something we can do, but we don't always have the ultimate authority to actually make the decision. And that's something that sometimes can be challenging. It's true. Some of the scenarios that I've mentioned are ones that we've been criticized on quite a bit. Like, why can't we just stop the number of programs that are forming? And some of those things are just beyond our jurisdiction, frankly.
You know, Mike, that's a great question. And Mike and Nick, one of the things that I would say too is when I, and for any potential future board member, I was very intimidated when I started, not really understanding how the group, you know, works so well together and from a cohesive standpoint, and that we really don't make decisions. There's not one person that's like making the decision. It's kind of the group working together and all this collective experience and wisdom and different perspectives and things like that, which is very, very important. And even though we may not have the power, the overt power to change and to fix or address some of those things, we aren't afraid to use our collective influence together to make a stand and try to help shape the decision makers that actually do. So, you know, I agree with you, Moshe. This comes up louder and louder each year. Why isn't there more this or more this or more this? And what we have to focus on as a board, and again, it's that, Jessica, it's that lens metaphor, is focusing our efforts on the things that we actually can change and put our voice in there as a voice of influence on the things that we can.
Yeah, I might just add, I think one of the things that I think I realized as I got into the board is that we're actually a pretty small organization, all things considered. And certainly when you compare us adjacent to the other sort of national organizations and kind of how much budget they have versus what our budget is, et cetera, we're obviously very small, and our members are programs, which is also a little bit of a different model. And I think to sort of directly answer your question, I think a tangible example of what we have tried to do was that, you know, we were really worried about the protected time thing and how that was on the table. And so as a board, we decided to invest a pretty significant amount of money and put out an RFP for a study to actually try to get the evidence to show that people are spending a lot of time running residency programs. And that's University of Michigan got that award to help us with our faculty work hour study, which was a way that we could potentially influence something by actually getting data that will show that our faculty members are working a lot, and then we can present that to the ACGME as more than just, you know, public comment, but actually here's the data and here's the proof that this is essential in order for programs to be successful. And so I think, you know, it's one example of how, you know, we can't put a hammer down and say no more, but we can try our best to do things within our organization and to then go to them as an advocate on behalf of the residency directors.
And just on a positive note, I will say that over the years, we have seen that organizations, the other organizations, are much more and more interested in what CORD has to say and actually values our opinion and our stance, especially the RRC, especially ABEM. They work very closely with us, and they really reach out to us and look to see what our stance would be on different things. And, you know, obviously they have their own challenges as well, and they can't always do exactly the things that they want to do, but they really listen to us. And I will tell you that's has really changed in the time that I've been in CORD. I think at the beginning, the RRC was like this very scary entity that was like, you know, they oversaw us and they site visited us, and who are they? And it's really become a very different relationship, I think, between the RRC and program directors, because the RRC members, many of them are CORD members and have been CORD members, and they've come through the organization. And I will tell you, they reach out to us on a regular basis about issues and to see what CORD's stance would be. And that's another thing, by the way, that I think has been great working on the board, especially on the executive board, is the ability to interact with all the other emergency medicine organizations. CORD is very much included in the vast majority, recent events not included, but CORD is very much usually involved in the vast majority of the initiatives that are put out by all the other major emergency medicine organizations, EMRA and AAEM and ACEP and SAEM and ACOEP, name it. All of the organizations really include CORD in their meetings, in their initiatives, in their multi-organization position statements. That also has not always been the case, and it's been nice to see over the years how CORD has taken a real place in the emergency medicine world. And for me, that's been very gratifying as well, to be able to work with all the other EM organizations to try to effectuate change for the specialty.
I think outside of emergency medicine, though, we also get a lot of invites to the AAMC and to the ACGME and kind of bigger influential bodies. So we get to have our say as well. And like, oh, who wants to come comment on the SVI, or who wants to come talk about X, Y, or Z? And we also get invited to those things as well, as another way to represent our constituency. So that's probably another thing in the background that we also get to influence.
Yeah, and just to Jess's point, CORD specifically was asked to have representation on the competency-based medical education group in the Milestones 2.0. So there's a lot of opportunities through CORD for that. And to Moshe's point, I will say that, yes, we are asked to join a lot of initiatives and statements. Know that we don't blindly jump in and say, okay, just because we can doesn't mean that we should or do. And I think every initiative that we get invited to, we carefully weigh the benefits to our membership and how our membership will be affected by our organization signing on. So we really want to be the best voice possible representing our constituents.
And I think something people who know me might say this is the longest I've been silent ever. But I think the idea of coming up with novel ways to approach the membership and novel ways to serve the membership have also been helpful. Moshe started CORD Connects before I joined the board. I was on the board for a year, and then Moshe and I continued it, and then Dan and I kept going with it after that. And I think that even something as simple as this webinar that is being used on a monthly basis to kind of address issues that are appropriate to our constituency in real time, as opposed to waiting for the end of the year meeting or putting it together as some other written newsletter or something like that, has been super helpful as well. And we can address essentially the curricular issues that are required for faculty development for our faculty and for our program directors. And I would like to thank you all for letting me continue to do this, because I really enjoy it.
Just to clarify, I can't take credit for starting CORD Connects. I did run it for a couple of years, but it was started before me. I believe Fiona Galliou and Chris Doty were probably the initial two people. But thank you.
Another question, what is the board going to be spending most of their time talking about and working on in the next year or two?
I think I can say confidently, we don't know yet. So some of the things we obviously do know, right? I mean, there's some issues that we've already talked about today that are going to be upfront, workforce, match, faculty support, burnout, wellness, improving our DEI efforts. Those are easy. Those are the things that we know about. And one of the things that I don't think we've touched on yet much as a board is how much we work with the other boards and how much communication is there, and figuring out what issues we need to tackle that are in our lane, so to speak. And those, as you know, those are going to be unique, and sometimes those come up year to year, and so we may not know yet what some of that's going to be. So we have to be, just like your normal clinical practice, you've got to be nimble and flexible in the way you think and apply your problem solving, and we'll just kind of see what happens.
And maybe in the last minute or so, Jessica, not to put you on the spot, but as the incoming president-elect, if you want to sort of follow that at all with some of the things that are on your mind in the upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Bo, you said it well. There's definitely things that are always kind of the foundation of what we do as an organization. But then there's also these surprises, like we didn't plan on COVID. We didn't plan on virtual seasons. We didn't plan on virtual education. So I think that's the stuff that we leave room for in the agenda. But I think, you know, one of the biggest overarching things that we've seen, not only in emergency medicine, but now I'm putting my new DIO hat on and I'm visiting all of the core programs in the hospital. And I sent, you know, a survey out to the pediatric residents. And I said, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is I hate everyone and everything, and 10 is everything is awesome. Where are you in your program right now? And the first 5 responses I got, 3 of them wrote 2. So it's not just emergency medicine that we need to be aware of. And I think that's some of the lens that I will probably bring in as president-elect about. It's not just about us, even though it's about us. And emergency medicine is real good about setting agendas and teaching other specialties how to do things. And I think if we can also help impact the House of Medicine with some of either lessons learned or successes that we've had in our field, to specialties that have never had to deal with this stuff before themselves, I think that's how we will also gain back some of the lost following of how emergency medicine went from heroes to zeros with kind of where we are as a specialty right now for some of those things. So I think I'm going to kind of be thinking big scale as well as the focus on what matters most to us as a specialty, but then leave room for whatever new bombs I'm sure will blow up in my lap. Can't wait.
Fantastic. All right, we want to respect everyone's time. Thank you so much for those that joined us live, and hopefully people that will watch this afterwards. And again, we want to encourage anybody who has any interest to reach out to any of us, but also please put your name in. I think the only way the board can evolve is by more people from different types of programs and places and backgrounds and identities joining the board and running for the board. That's the only way we're gonna move forward. So thanks everyone for your time and joining us today. And hopefully we'll see your name on the ballot.